Hello and welcome to Mystica TV, the channel about healing knowledge and high vibe personalities. My name is Katrin Seibold and you might be surprised to see my face here. The reason is this channel has been publishing interviews so far in German language, thanks to the founder and wonderful presenter Thomas Schmelzer. We're now starting a new series of interviews in English language, and I'm very glad to have the honor to present them. Thank you very much, Thomas. In this very first approach, we would like to introduce you to a personality who has been out in public for more than 30 years. He is considered to be the most well-known medium of Great Britain. The BBC Scotland has even published a 2-part documentary about him, and he has published many books with titles like Spirit Messenger or Intuitive Studies. So I'm very delighted to welcome Mr. Gordon Smith here at Mystica TV. Hi, Gordon. Great to have you here. Welcome, Gordon Smith. Thank you very much for being here with us today at Mystica TV.
My pleasure, Katrin.
So, Gordon, it has been also almost common sense that there is no coincidence in life. And reading one of your books, I found this very beautiful scene where you, as a very young man, were walking down West Prince Street in Glasgow, trying to find the place where your teacher was waiting, and you didn't know whether you would find the place. And this is a kind of a charming scene to show how coincidence works. Would you like to share that scene with us, please?
Wow, you're really taking me back in time, Katrin. That was a long time ago. But yes, I was told to go to a particular class, a spiritual class, and I couldn't find it. I'd walked one length of the street, I came back, and it's almost like it was hidden from my sight. And then all of a sudden, at the last minute, this little small lady with curly white hair, very strong little lady, came out. She says, "Excuse me, you're looking for me. I'm Mrs. Primrose." And she took me in this doorway, and I went into this class of people who were ready to meditate. But for me, it was incredible because I was about to give up. I thought, that's it. If I do one more walk and I don't find it, I'm not meant to do this. And she just had a feeling at the same time, I need to go out and see if there's anyone else before I close the door. And it was me. And that could have changed. So you look at that had I not gone in there that night, I might never have started my spiritual journey. So it was really very synchronistic.
You have been telling people for so many times, you're out there in public for 30 years now, how this all started, that you had certain perceptions as a child. You told the story about the person that probably all of a sudden showed up in your vision or in your perception after getting out of a huge fire. So at that point where you met Miss Primrose, something started. And if you would tell your life as in a fairy tale, Miss Primrose, I thought this is like in a novel. You can really see this lady in front of you.
Yeah.
So I would be very happy because I didn't find that yet. Could you describe us? Who was that? How is that lady, Mrs. Primrose?
Well, the name suggests a very prim and proper woman. Mrs. Primrose was maybe this tall, 4 foot tall, but she was like a giant in personality. She was a woman who was fierce. And when she spoke, she commanded a room. And she had been a medium for most of her life. And she was the most respected teacher we had in Glasgow. People were I don't mean we were afraid of her in an aggressive way, but her command filled a room, this tiny little woman. And she was, I believe, the most truthful person I've ever met in my life. I don't think the lady was capable of telling a lie. Her belief in the spirit world and the afterlife was so real that you couldn't help but want to know more from her. She was what you would call the perfect teacher. She really was. She was our female Dumbledore, if you watch Harry Potter.
How old was she about?
When I met Mrs. Primrose, she would have been 70, 76, 77. So I was only young. I was in my 20s. So for me, that was an old lady. Now, as I'm in my 60s, I don't think that's that old.
And when you started in your 20s, yes, looking back, you approached all those paths to become a spiritual teacher. Yeah. But when you start teaching people, you start with meditation, and you tell them the first key is to be really honest. That's what you just told about Mrs. Primrose. Yeah. And this is something that people say, oh, of course I'm a good person. Of course I'm honest. And then when you start working with yourself, then you feel, oh my goodness, there is really stuff to do. So could you elaborate a little bit on the subject honesty? Because I think it's such a big, big subject at those times now.
Do you know, Katrin, honesty for me is a person's version of the truth, but there is only one truth. Honesty is something we use a lot to make excuses. I'm really being honest. And that kind of gets you away with things. But that's not what I mean. To be truthful, maybe more than honest. Because when you go into a class where you're going into your mind, it's only you that you have to convince. No one else. It's you in your space. So you have to tell the truth to yourself. You have to accept your faults and try to correct them. You have to own the things you've done and then try to uncomplicate your life. Don't carry baggage. Don't be guilty. Let go of things like this by improving yourself. You can only do this if you're honest and truthful with yourself. And that's what our meditation was like with Mrs. Primrose. You saw your weaknesses, your flaws, the things you didn't do or could have done. And then you saw them from a perspective of, okay, how can I improve myself? So in many ways, though we were developing a spiritual ability or gift, we were also developing a better version of self that could actually work with these gifts. Because there's no point in somebody who is untruthful having a special gift. That could go in all sorts of funny directions. So you need to be a person who can work with the truth and honesty. And that is a beginning with self. If you can't be honest with yourself, you'll never be honest with the world.
So there's different techniques to go through those different inner works and inner states. For example, you just mentioned guilt. Yeah. We in Germany, we have a huge subject with guilt. And I think there's a lot to do. You are a lot in German-speaking countries. I think you're a very popular person here. And I think you can also tell on the book sales that a lot of books that were published from you were sold or are popular in Germany. What could you kind of recommend people when they sit in meditation and they really want to improve themselves or say, oh, I just want to find myself. I want to get loose with myself, be forgiving, all this. What was a good key for you to deal with feeling guilty or with having guilt subjects?
Katrin, I'm sorry, my dogs are barking. They're woof woofing.
Hear it. No
problem. Oh, that's okay. I do apologize to anyone, but I can hear my doggies woof woofing.
Welcome to your dog.
My doggies, welcome to our lovely German casting in the other world. Can I just continue with what you said then? Is that okay to elaborate a bit on that?
Perfect.
Well, for me, when I went to work in Germany, when I was much younger, and there was all sorts of different beliefs and people trying to find themselves. And guilt was probably the root of people's confusion. Should I do this better? How can I be better? Everybody was trying to be better. And I was the one person that said, stop that. You keep attaching yourself to something that's not yours. What are you doing? A consciousness is individual. It's not a country. As a country, you can't be responsible for everything that people do in a country. So I found it was a big mission to work in Germany, to tell people, you need to let go of holding on to things that aren't connected to you. They may be connected to the past, but not to you individually. So for me, I had a wonderful time working with people and seeing their growth and expansion when they realize, hold on a minute, what am I really being guilty for? Stuff that was out of my control, stuff that I'm not involved in. And in all honesty, that happens with everybody, no matter which country you come from or your nationality. A lot of people attach themselves to their parents. And if the parents did something that wasn't so good, I feel responsible. You're not. You're an individual. And you take responsibility for your own individuality and your own actions. So that would be the teaching I would give people, and did. And I mean, most of my friends are German or Swiss or Austrian. So it's like I became very popular with people in the sense that I was just telling them a truth. A lot of people feel their life isn't worth something unless they suffer. And again, that is just so not true. Life is about being happy, not suffering. And don't be a victim of something if you're not, or you don't have to be. So my teaching was very positive, Katrin, and separating the mind from the past, because you cannot change a past. You can change the present. And in so doing, the future will be very different. But this is the only thing you can really deal with. What happened yesterday is gone. What happens now is relative to what's going to happen tomorrow. So being in control of that, being positive about it, was my message to people. You know, cut ties with the past, get into the now. That would be my big message.
When I read your book, Developing Mediumship, I found so encouraging sentences from you, and I really want to kind of repeat that here because it's so good. You tell the people when they start meditating what to do, and you say, if you fall asleep, it doesn't matter. It's just a sign that you kind of, relaxing, and it's a good thing. And just in case you're distracted, it doesn't matter, because it means that you started, and you're so encouraging to people in your books. I found that really amazing, because you know that starting to meditate is very different than doing meditation for a long time, every day, really practicing. For me, it was like as if you would learn an instrument. It needs discipline. It needs being there every day, practicing, going to the teacher. So the encouragement is something that really shows you are such a positive person. Have you been that positive person all your life, or did that change?
No. When I was young, I was very nervous. I had many inner fears and anxieties. So the development that I did, I mean, if I'm anything, I'm living proof that meditation works, because I learned how to overcome my fears. And Katrin, this is the biggest thing I can give people today, because fear is the greatest cancer known to us right now. Fear is the biggest illness causer in the world. So if I can help people to overcome their fear, as I did, through learning, first of all, to relax, because you can't meditate if you cannot relax. So a lot of people come into meditation classes and, okay, I'm going to meditate, and they're ever so serious. And you think, chill out. Just stop that. Relax. Let's teach you how to relax. But sadly, we live in a world where everything is instant. We want it now. So people want to meditate and become Zen within 5 minutes of closing their eyes. That's not going to happen. So I try and encourage people to enjoy the experience of relaxation and learn small, insightful things from it, not big things. Don't meditate and try and fix the world. That's not going to happen. Meditate and try to fix yourself. Start with the simple things. So my teaching of simplicity actually encourages people to accomplish small things and get used to this feeling of accomplishment, not failure. A lot of people go into meditation and feel like a failure. I didn't do it right. I didn't meet a spirit guide. I didn't become the Buddha. I didn't see Jesus. No, you're not supposed to. You're supposed to get yourself relaxed and at peace with yourself. And if you like the energy of you, then you work on it and you expand it and you grow. It's a lifetime thing. It's not a thing you do in one go or a few lessons. So for me, my world changed because of that. I realized there was nothing to fight for, nothing to achieve that wasn't bigger than happiness. That's the greatest thing anyone will ever achieve.
You told in public a lot that it took you 7 years roundabout, that you went to that group with Mrs. Primrose and with a group working, and then you started to go out into public. And it didn't take very long that the BBC Scotland decided to make a documentary about you. And I found that really charming that they took 2 professors really kind of justifying that this guy is a serious one and that he's healthy in the head. And now this media world has changed so much. Were you afraid when you started out, or how was that to go really into big media in Great Britain?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I never started my development to be on a stage in front of thousands of people or in front of television cameras. That just happened. And I now understand why. It was part of who I am, that I am confident in what I do. And I'm also very, I would hope, trusting, that people trust me because I'm down to earth and grounded. I'm not away with the fairies. I'm really not. And that kind of bothers me when I see people who are so up here and they're so spiritual. For me, spirituality is on the ground. If I give you something that I have, that's spirituality. I don't need to wear white robes and stand in front of crowds and bless them all. I don't do that. For me, it's being real. So the reality is what the BBC liked. They thought, this guy is a hairdresser, a barber. And that's what I was. And they called me the psychic barber. This, and not me, they called me that. But it made sense that I could just go to work every day. But then at night, sometimes I'd be on a stage or I'd be working with people and teaching, spiritual teaching and stuff like that. So I think they liked the idea that I was grounded in reality, but I also had a spiritual gift, which professors tested. And they were like, wow, this guy does something that's beyond the 5 human senses. It goes beyond that. They couldn't quantify exactly what I did. I don't know that I can actually, but they knew it was beyond what 5 senses could actually be aware of. So the BBC got really interested. In fact, I made about 6 or 7 BBC documentaries after that. They followed me through my life and across the world and all the things. And in all of them, I just kept trying to remain myself. Don't get caught up in the media thing. That's an illusion. Reality is where you wake up every day. Reality are the people you talk to. Reality are your dogs barking while you're on a TV show. That's reality. So you keep in touch with self. And I think that's why people liked me, because I wasn't claiming I was a saint or I was, look at me, I'm pure. I'm not. I'm a very down-to-earth human being.
For a long time, you kept on being a hairdresser, cutting people's hair and having them in your barbershop. And that's probably the reason why you also stayed grounded. What do you do today to stay grounded?
Well, I do now. I paint a lot. I'm an artist. I paint Scotland. I love the land that I live in. I live in a very beautiful part of Scotland where we have mountains and we have the ocean and forests, and it's actually like Bavaria. One of my favorite places in the world is southern Germany. And well, there you are. I love it. And it reminds me of Scotland when I'm in Bavaria, and the Bavarian people remind me of the people of the highlands of Scotland where I live. They're very kind, they're very open, they're friendly. I find a lovely atmosphere there. So I walk in the hills a lot with my dogs, and I take pictures, and then I come home and I paint. And I love to paint bright colours of the country I live in. A lot of people, when they see my paintings, they say, Scotland looks so sunny and warm. Like, it's really not. I just make that up. I add the sunshine. But it really is, for me, I get lost in art. I've studied art all my life, and it's a joy to do that. And many other things. I mean, I'm never quiet. I write a lot. I write plays, I write books, I write anything. Even if they're not published, I love to write stories. So my mind is always working on something new and creating a new podcast or a new play for a friend of mine who's an actor. I'm very creative, and I love that.
Well, 23 books, is it? I think that you wrote or you published, and
published.
there were translated in various versions in, I think, about 15 languages, which is a lot. Now, media world has changed. There's more moving image. There's more podcasts. Could you tell us a little bit about how you think the public, if you can call it the public, has changed from your perspective?
Well, yeah, I think the public has changed because they have access to more. That's the first thing. When I was growing up, we had a library to go and study or reference things. You had to go and read books. Nowadays, you have a phone. A mobile is a handy. You type in what you need and it comes up. You can even have AI on that will tell you how to do an interview. How will I interview a medium? Yeah, I did that last week when I was interviewing a young medium to see what would it say? How would it be different from what I got in my notes? So the public have access to things. So you can actually go online and watch a medium. Now, when I was growing up, you had to go into a spiritual church or a public hall or something to see someone like that. If you wanted, I used to be fascinated by Carl Jung, C.G. Jung, the psychoanalyst, and I loved his work. I could only get it via books. Now I could YouTube Carl Jung, and there's interviews he did. So the media now is opened up and people get an insight into things that they never could before. So they have probably a bigger choice than they ever had. You can look at my mediumship and think, no, let me try someone else. How do they differ? They have that at their fingertips, Katrin, whereas before it was a very personalised journey and insular. Now everything is so open. You can talk to people online about, I just saw a healer and the healer did this for me. Do you want to go and see this healer? Everything is so open. So in many ways, I think that is evolution. I think it's meant to be like that. It's only about 150 years ago, someone like me could have been arrested and maybe put to death for doing what I do. I mean, the Witchcraft Act would have meant that I could have been arrested and put in prison or even killed. So that things like that no longer apply. So mediumship, healers, spiritual philosophers, they are now on the internet everywhere and people can access us everywhere. We're easy to find.
On your website, you have the section about helping fathers or helping parents. I found that really impressive that you made really a kind of huge events with about 80 fathers getting in touch or getting contact to their loved ones, the ones who have crossed to the spirit world. And this is happening in Phoenix, Arizona. I think it's a really great thing to have so many people at a place that share the same experience and that really are brave enough to get in touch with another world that that they don't know. How was that for you?
It's very rewarding for me because, and excuse me, all the years I've done this, I've concentrated on trying to help people who are grieving. That's really my work. But with the fathers, because the men went there to support their wives, they'd all lost children. And it happened one night in a bar. One young man came up and said, "Can I ask you a question?" And I said, "Sure." And he was angry. He was very angry because his son had died and he didn't know how to help his wife. And as I spoke to this young guy, maybe in his late 20s, all these other men came round, all these other fathers, and they were listening. And I realised, oh my God, these men don't have a place to express their grief. They are so busy trying to be the father, the man, the strong person in the relationship, but they're grieving. So I created my little bit, which was to help fathers heal. And then I could go in and they could talk to me about anything, what they were feeling, if they were sad. And I did talks and exercises, workshops, and even readings for some of them. And it's just such a rewarding thing because these men are really breaking their hearts, but they don't know where to do it. They don't want to appear weak, which it's not weak to cry, but they feel it as, some of them. So they needed a private place, if you like. So me going and working with the fathers was just another way that I do to try and serve the spirit world and help people, because that's really what it's about, what I do. It's about healing people. And that was a lovely sense of reward. And the healing that I saw in a lot of these men, it was wonderful, wonderful experience.
Also because men grieve in a different way than women. And if
Absolutely.
a child is going on to the other side and dying, then women tend to talk a lot about it, and they talk and talk and talk, and guys do it in a completely other way. They're sad too, but of course they protect their woman and all this.
Yeah.
So you were the person who kind of made a bridge from this world to the other world.
Yeah.
How could the other world actually help?
Well, I mean, as a medium, I sometimes hear the voices of their loved ones or see them, or I'm able to convey a message. So, I mean, an example would be one man who basically he was so angry because his daughter was killed by a guy in a truck or something, a road accident. And this man wanted justice for his daughter. And his wife was, as you say, she came to me, she was talking, and, oh, I feel this and I feel that. He was like stone, is all I can say. He just felt like stone. But the anger was so cold inside him. And that's sad that this beautiful man, he was a lovely man, his daughter had been killed in a really stupid way that he just felt he wanted something back, whether it was to be angry at the man who did it or to hurt him maybe. And I remember just saying, the daughter came through, I won't tell you her name, but she told me her name, and I said to the man, your name is Mr. So-and-so, and he looked at me. And he said, what? And I said, your daughter's here, her name is such and such. I told him the name. And I said, she really doesn't like that you're angry. Her life was fun, it was joyous, but you're stuck in anger. And she needs you to move on from that anger. You're not going to change anything other than hurt yourself, hurt your wife, hurt his two sons. She needs you to be loving and fun again. And this man went from stone just to flows of tears and shaking. And I remember just holding him. I'm not a tall guy. This guy was a big tall guy. And I was like this short person holding him. And you could just feel his whole inner self was shaking, letting go, dissolving. Probably a hatred for the person who killed his daughter. So in that way, the other world, if you like, gave him permission to cry, gave him permission to let go. And in some ways gave him permission at some point to forgive. Because that would be the real healing, when he in his heart can forgive. I can't do that. I only opened the door. The rest of the journey is his. But that's what the other world can do. In extreme situations, they will come and heal people. And they do it because they love them. That's all. It's all for love.
This might be one of the most surprising things about the spiritual world for a lot of people that haven't had so many contact with it, that it's alive. There's an alive world on the other side. And it's so various. It's not like there's one type of ghosts, let's call it like this. It's so various, like human beings on Earth, maybe even more various. So is that something that is something that we have to learn as a human race, that there's so much more to discover, and you would be one of the persons who could really teach us? How would you describe that variety?
Do you know, Katrin, I only know what I know through my experiences. I'm not an evolved, enlightened mind. I'm not a bodhisattva or something, but I know what I know through experience. And here's what I know. It's interesting the way human beings look at a spirit world. So in my understanding, we are spirit. The real world is there, not here. We visit here for a very short moment in time. When we go back there, there is no time. But there's also none of the stuff that you find in this world. Being spirit means you're free of confinement, free of containment, free of suffering, free of greed, free of hate, free of want. All the things that attach themselves to human mind are gone when we die from this world and are reborn in a spirit world. We are lighter, a lighter version of ourselves. And each trip we have in this journey, another life, this time I've manifested this body. So I don't belong to this world. I belong to the spirit world. I'm visiting here. So that's how I see it. as humans, we have no real understanding of the bigger concept of spirit world or God, or you don't. We can call it things, but we don't really. To understand it, you need to be in it. So you need to learn how to expand your mind. So like call it, say, the Dalai Lama, someone like that, maybe make it easy for people. He has spent his entire life since the age of 3 practicing to expand his consciousness. So he can be in the spirit world and here at the same time. His consciousness, not his body, his consciousness can be in the two worlds at the same time. Now, that's what I practice, so that death has no command over me. There is no death. For me, you cannot die for the life of you. Your life goes on and on. So knowing that just means these episodes of humanity or human being, they're so quick. They're gone like that. And I don't put too much on mine.
A friend of mine, she's guiding or helping people. She's working in a hospice, helping people when they die, to
Yes.
also helping the relatives. She says to her, it seems like it must have been one of the biggest lies on earth, that death is something terrible. Yeah. Because just observing, she sees peace in the faces of the people. Yeah. She sees relief. She sees love. She sees also some kind of acceleration. Yeah. What do you think about this thought?
Well, your friend sounds to me like someone I would call a soul midwife. Like a midwife brings babies into the world, a soul midwife lets spirits leave the world. And I love that term for your friend. You can tell her I said that. She's soul midwife. And I love that because death is not to be feared. We are born and taught by the generations before us that death is a terrible thing. Death is a natural thing. Remember, death is not the opposite of life. It's part of it. It's a natural ending. For a lot of people, it just ends. And then you don't end. Even Einstein taught us that energy cannot die. Your energy has to go somewhere. So whether it be into a heaven land, like the Christians would say, some sort of heaven, whether it be a spirit world, like spiritualists would look at, where it's realms of light and evolvement, whether it be a Buddhist afterlife where you go into either a nirvana if you're enlightened, or you actually choose to rebirth, but you go on. And knowing that you go on should take the sting or the fear out of this life. I have 2 sons, and I look at them and I think of the world they live in. And I try to make them peaceful in it, that don't worry about me dying or anybody dying. Don't worry about you dying. Be calm. And if you're not afraid of death, Katrin, you're not afraid of life. If you're not afraid of dying, you won't be afraid of living. And these are the things I try and teach people, because while we're here, we must enjoy it. The experience, you've chosen to be Katrin for a reason. You're learning things as you for a purpose, a greater purpose. But you will take all of that back to the higher you. And there, a new version of you can be created, a much better version. I know in the next life, there'll be a much better version of me, because of the things I've experienced. And a lot of that because of the hurts and pains. That's why we're here, to feel what it's like to manifest in a solid, dense body, because our natural state is light. We are light. So to become dense, this is not some Garden of Eden. It's really not. This is a difficult place to live, this world. So you make it as light as you can by becoming more of your spirit self. I have no problem with death. Death is just a change, and it will happen to everyone. My spirit guide taught a group of people one day when somebody said, what's it like to die? And he said, it's really easy. This is a spirit guide talking to the people through me. And he said, death is really easy. All of you can do it. Life is the hard part. And that's true.
I always think it's similar, like being born, giving birth as a mom. Also, it's like this kind of, you step on, or also sexuality, you step a ladder up, something is accelerating, then there's this transformation point where you really, something's completely turned. And after you open and you step through this door or this portal, you can never go back. you're in a different state.
You're in a different state.
Maybe death seems to be something similar.
Yeah.
And also every human can do it. You don't have to teach to a cow or to a sheep or to a dog how to give birth. They all can do it.
Yeah.
There's no schools for it. So why do people think that they need kind of devices or whatever they think they need to do all those things, even for death? So how about let's just let go? But of course, we can talk about it in an easy way when we're there. We are facing fear.
Yes.
We're facing anxiety and all this. This is a human part of this journey, probably. And you are very precise describing those practices that kind of deal with those other worlds. For example, you say being psychic is something different than medium mystic.
Yes.
And then you talk about clear sentencing and clear viewing, all those things. So there's like a whole catalog of practices or things that you practice. What is like the most like one of the practices that you really gets into everything that I just mentioned?
Well, I think just being more aware. Being aware. A lot of people don't really practice mindfulness or awareness. So for me, when I do a teaching to a class, the first thing I'm trying to teach them is how aware are you of yourself, of your life, even the place you live in? Have you truly even looked at it, sat in it and felt what the energy is like in your room where you live? If you start with practical things that you can identify with, then you can really come to the understanding of what it's like. You know, I sit in my house and I love the energy. I absolutely feel rejuvenated, restored, healed, because I put a lot of love into that room. Some people live in a room and they don't even know what's on the walls of their own house because they're too in their head. So my job is to get people to look out, to sense, feel what's around you. What energy are you putting out there? So I start with self, Katrin, and then I teach people, okay, now what do you see in the world? Is the world exactly what you think it is? Or is it different? So, I mean, I'm part Buddhist. I was taught Buddhism when I was very young and I practiced Buddhism. So for me, mindfulness is a big thing. And I mix that mindfulness with my mediumship. So I become very mindful of the world I live in, but I'm equally mindful of the world around me. And that includes the atmosphere. And I can walk into a room and feel an atmosphere probably quicker than most people. Oh, not such a good atmosphere. I'm not going to stay here. Some people will go somewhere and say, I didn't like the atmosphere and people were unkind to me and this happened and that. And you think, why didn't you walk away? I didn't like you. I didn't know how to get out of that. Read the atmosphere. You can read the atmosphere of people. I can be in someone's company and immediately go, oh, I love this person's energy and I know we're going to be friends, or step away. So it's that really about learning to understand the atmosphere you put out and the atmosphere that others bring into you. That would be the first steps that I would teach people. And from that, you can learn so much about people, places, the world.
So this is about perceiving, using your senses more than the five senses.
Yes.
And then we get into the next step, as you said, to create, to be like the person who designs the atmosphere of a room. And it's very simple. I think it's very interesting to talk about this because people think, oh, it has to be something with magic and special abilities. Of course, you can get to this, but maybe it just starts with cleaning. Maybe it just starts with putting a flower on a table or lighting a candle or things like this. And so let's talk about creation, because so many people talk about being creative, inspired, and, you know, all those words that are used so many times.
Yeah.
But the state from being aware to create an atmosphere, was there something on your path that was really a key for you? Also now being a painter, for example.
Well, yeah, because I had a small group of people all through my life. We called it our spiritual circle. So they would come to my home once a week. And it was important for me to create an atmosphere that was safe, that was loving, that was healing. So like you say, you know, it could just be cleaning the place, lighting incense and candles and just creating a place that felt welcoming. And when we would sit in that to meditate together, we were putting our positive energy into that room. And that's in your house. Now, to me, where you live is an extension of your mind. I believe firmly that my house is my mind. So how my house is, you know how sometimes you look at a cupboard in your house and you think, oh my God, I need to clean that. So to me, that's just a lot of unlooked at thoughts and memories you need to get rid of. So I use my house symbolically like that. So when my house feels free and clean and happy and joyous, even putting on special music that makes you feel good, all of these things are things that I practice to make my home a happier place. But then I realize in doing that, it's symbolic and representative of my mind. I live in my mind. You live in your mind. Our mind is everywhere with us. We live in it. But my home is an expression of it. So for me, that was what I would do. I would create, well, let the home be a reflection of my mind. And therefore, I would also know when I walked into my house and things weren't right. That even made me look at my life. So what else is not right here? Hold on. How did I let this go? If I've ignored this in my home, what am I ignoring in my life? What am I overlooking right now? What am I not attending to? So I use things symbolically to actually represent my own life. And that would be it. Being aware of the world that you live in is really important. You know, I have a little exercise I do when I walk my dogs, and I walk the same path through the forest into the hills, and I give myself exercises. Today, I'm going to observe everything that's blue. And honestly, the things that your mind, not your eyes, your mind attracts you to something. The next day, I'm going to find everything yellow. And again, and before you know it, you go through it every day, and each day you don't focus on anything other than what you're giving yourself the order that day. And by the end of the week, the forest that I started walking through that was just trees, all of a sudden is now full of colour and full of light that I think, wow. And it was always there. It was me who was not switched on. And I do the same with everything around me when I can.
Yeah, that's such a great example, because when you paint, you want to find some green from far away. If you go closer to the painting, somebody has used probably yellow
and blue,
red, all those colors. So thank you for that great example.
Yeah.
Well, being aware of the world also means today that a lot of people look on wars, look on big sufferings somewhere else where they are not actually themselves. So being in this world in 2024, it's also a practice of focusing on what can I really change. So what is your advice for people who really look on the dark side of this earthly universe?
Well, I would limit the amount of news that I watch, because the news cycles that repeat every day are just negative. If you need to be aware of what's happening in the world, watch it once in the morning. But don't carry these things in your mind all day. You don't have to. Thinking about it won't change it. But allowing yourself to get pulled down by the negativity of information. And information is a wonderful thing, but it's also a terrible burden. So to cram your brain, not your mind, your brain, full of negative thoughts. Ukraine, Palestine, Lebanon, all the things that's happening in the world right now. The US with its election and all the crazy stuff around that. Nothing seems to bring joy from that. So I divorce myself from newsreels, and I give myself something to do in the here and now. Like walking with my dogs. Don't sit at home and think. Go and walk. Go and paint. Create something, cook something, go shopping, but keep your mind in a place that's absolutely free of that. Play a radio station you love, and you can bring as much good stuff into your mind as bad stuff. But for some reason, the human brain is attracted to it. Oh, what's happening there? Now, not you or I or anyone individually can stop these world leaders doing what they're doing. We cannot do that. We can only do it en masse by voting. So as an individual, we can't change it. But don't invite it into your life. Be aware of it, the stuff you need, but don't carry it. It's not yours. It's just words and sounds that have come into your head and caused you distress. Create a life where you also have somewhere else to go that is joyful. You need to have joy in your life. You really do. And freedom.
The reason why so many people are attracted to this probably is that we're attracted to good or any kind of energy, like kind of an increase of our inner movings. And it could be negative movings or positive movings. But the hormones, as we know from science, are probably quite similar, like cortisol and adrenaline and all this. So there would be sports, there would be the arts, there would be some kind of other challenges. And there's also very extreme feelings that you can reach when you practice spirituality. So how about to dive into your maybe most extreme, if you want to share it, extreme experience with spirituality, with practicing your mind and your feelings and your atmosphere?
Well, there are so many experiences like that. But I think the feeling of being separate from yourself, if I can go into an altered state of consciousness, which I can, I've practiced it for many years now, and allow myself to expand away from the physical world for a moment. Last night, I was helping a young medium in America, in Oregon, on a Zoom link. And he's in a room there, I'm here in Scotland. And I said to him, I just want you to sit and relax. I'm going to show you something. And don't do anything. And I went into my state. So I said to him, I want you just to breathe in line with me. Let our breathing become the same breath. And we created that. And then within a moment, I felt as though I was then in the room with him. I was no longer here. I was with him. And I gently lifted my hand, obviously, probably did it in front of the screen, to the right side of his face, like this. And then I suggested a colour in my mind. I don't speak. This was all telepathic. But I'm there. I'm now in the west coast of America. And I can feel this young man's aura, if you like, but it feels solid. And then I can hear a dog, a big dog, breathing in the room with me. And I thought, okay, don't do anything. And then I asked him mentally, telepathically, I said, lift your hands. And his hands lift up, his physical hands. And I'm in Scotland, but I'm not, I'm there. And I put my hands on top of his. And he can feel the heat coming from my hands. He can even feel my fingers. And then I talk him to come back. Come back. You know, all that time I'm out of my body. It is tremendous. What a feeling. I don't want to come back into this when I do that. It's like, no, leave me there. But anyway, he came back and he said, Gordon, that was weird. I said, tell me what happened. He said, you were in the room with me. He says, and you touched the right side of my face. I said, He said, then the room turned yellow. And I said, did it? He said, but then the weirdest thing, did you ask me to lift my hands? You didn't speak, but my hands lifted. And I said, yeah, that's exactly what I did. And he said, how is that possible? I said, I don't know the mechanics behind it. I just know it is possible. And I said, now here's the teaching here. If you can hear an inner voice of another being who's thousands of miles away from you, you can hear the inner voice of a spirit who's in a different state of life. You can. You just need to allow your mind to accept that. And I said, and incidentally, do you have a big dog? And he went, yeah. And he called his dog, and it's this big, mastiff dog, and it was breathing. And I said, I was aware of that dog when I was there. And he said, oh, yeah, he was asleep in the corner. He was breathing. And I thought, wow. So, I mean, something like that, when you can realize you're not limited to this body, you know, you're not. The body in many ways can be like a prison to you. When your mind has the freedom, the universe is your oyster, not the world, the universe. Then you have the capacity to not be afraid of letting go. That's the teaching. Don't be afraid to let go. Let go.
That's such a great example also for looking on the technical side of digitalization. In this example, the technique that you were in a Zoom call or some kind of video call, it was just the helper, the little helper to get you connected. And you didn't even pay attention to it anymore. It was just something that was there, helping you two to get together. But without it, you probably would have crossed many borders, or maybe it
absolutely. But so that's true, Katrin.
Have to be afraid.
No. But see what you just said now. Before Zoom and before the computer, if somebody was, say, a remote viewer, your mind naturally tells you, if somebody says, I want you to look at somebody's life in Russia or America, you would see yourself in your mind traveling across lands and seas and borders. And whereas with this, no, boom, instantly you're in another room in another country. And yet space and time don't actually exist when you're out of your body. There is no space or time. It's not relative to your light body. It's really not.
So thank you very much, Gordon. This, I think, is a great word for the end. Let's be out of space and time.
Yes.
We invite everybody to practice, and I just invite people to follow Gordon on his mission and also be here at Mystica TV. I thank everybody who watched. It was a great pleasure for me to start this first part of our series in English-speaking interviews. Thank you for everybody joining this little journey with Gordon Smith, and I wish you a lot of good luck, Gordon, for your trips to Europe and around, and maybe also beyond the world.
Beyond the world. That's it, Katrin. Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.